Welcome to For the Health of It. We're very excited this morning, our second show here. Um, I am Dr. Scott Phillips. I will be your personal health care expert for the next hour, and we're really excited to talk about what we're talking about today. Today's topic is stress, and I think even when I say that word, some of you have just already started to think of your kids or your job or who knows what else that's stressing you out today. But I'll tell you, we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to talk about not just uh, what it is, but what you can do. We're going to give you some great tips and great ideas to make sure that stress isn't making you sick. So today's guest is my friend, Miss Joline Dalton. Joline, you can say hi to everybody.
Hello, everybody, and hi, Dr. Scott. Great to be here today.
Jolene is a massage therapist here in town, and we'll get to introduce you a little bit more and kind of why you got into massage and everything. But here at the beginning, we got some fun things to talk about. I was browsing these healthcare articles. I really enjoyed someone had started getting this article circulated. So hopefully, maybe some of you have already read it, maybe not. But this is kind of it was a neat study. It was done out at the University of California in San Francisco, which I guess shouldn't surprise any of us. They do some weird things out there. But the title of the study, or the title of the research, is that young blood reverses aging in mice. And so, as funny as that sounds, what they did is they took all these mice, and they had old mice and they had young mice, and they injected these old mice with blood from young mice and from old mice. And as crazy as that sounds, which I think it sounds really weird, but here's some of what they found out. They said they worked with the mice roughly the equivalent of people in their 20s and then their 60s. And so they repeatedly injected the older mice with blood from either the younger or the aged mice. And those that got the young blood did better in learning, memory tests. They even did better kind of doing the mazes and stuff like that. Like they actually were able to remember more. So this was just kind of funny. One of the people that wrote the article said, "Don't try this at home." So I guess we're not ready yet for human trials. But very interesting. What they did is they looked and said, well, what could it be in the blood? And they found a protein called GDF11, apparently, that was in the bloodstream of the younger mice. And those younger mice said had all this GDF11 more than the older mice, and then apparently humans have this same protein too. So I don't know what the next step in this research is, but I think that's pretty neat. I don't know. I mean, maybe when you're having kind of a senior moment at home, you can have a vial ready of your child's blood. I don't know. Does that sound like
Well,
the future?
hopefully, it could help a little bit with dementia and those type of things,
Well, and
right?
that's exactly what they're looking at it for.
Yeah.
Is they say, hey, there's got to be some thing that this can help with, if indeed. And obviously, I mean, it's not. I mean, we produce so much blood, we can donate blood, that kind of thing. It would be very interesting to see if they can isolate this protein and help with something like that. I think that's kind of a neat way to think about doing it. I don't know.
It's also scary, though, to think about messing around too much with the natural aging process.
I know, we all want that fountain of youth, don't we? Sheesh, darn it. So anyway, I thought that was kind of a fun article. I found it off Fox News, but like I say, there was something circulating around Facebook if you find it. Let's go over some of our fun and exciting events that are coming up. The first one I wanted to talk about was the Kids Health and Safety Fair that's coming up this Saturday. We've probably already, hopefully you've heard a lot about it. I know it's in conjunction with that Mile by Mile marathon, so a lot of kids coming home from school, they got the papers and said, hey, here's what's going on. But it's over at the old police station. It's not an old, well, it's kind of an old police station, but it's the police station. And anyway, it is fun. They've got face painters. They've got all kinds of fun things happening. and I believe it starts at 11. I know that's when the race starts, and so hopefully our weather will be good enough that we'll be able to have a lot of fun out there, and there'll be free health screenings, and I know they have bounce houses usually. And I talked a little bit last week about the car crash thing that they bring in, and I always set my booth up right next door to pass my cards out. So anyway, should be a good time, and we definitely invite anyone to come out for that. The second event that we have coming up in the Valley, there is a Wasatch County Relay for Life coming up. It's going to be in July, and anybody that knows anything about Relay for Life or American Cancer Society, all those types of things going on, right? We're trying to kind of honor those who have fought the disease and either won or lost, right? And so it's kind of a nice event for the community to come together and think about those types of things. And so on Saturday the 24th, so that's not this weekend really or next week, I guess the week after. But Saturday the 24th, we've got a car wash that they're going to do some fundraising for that. And the car wash is going to be over at the Days Market parking lot. Really quite inexpensive. I think the tickets for one car wash is $7, and you can get a 2-pack for $10. So $5 car washes basically, or $7 if you only have one car. And you can go in and get your car wash, and I think it'd be a really worthy event. We're going to have one of the representatives from Relay for Life come next week, talk a little bit more about it. But you can look for that on Facebook. I know especially around here we've got Relay for Life up and running in Facebook, so you can check that out. And then the last event I wanted to talk about, I brought in another friend of mine, Miss Shannon Lavenia. And Shannon, you can pull that mic closer to you and we'll turn you up so you can chat with everybody. But this event is being put on by what's called the Utah Wellness Network. And I'm just going to kind of give Shannon the floor here so she can kind of tell us what's going on. Really the reason is because I'm the speaker and I don't like to self-promote. So I'm going to let Shannon promote.
I see how that works, Dr. Scott. Well, good morning, everyone. And I'm happy to be here. My name is Shannon Lavenia, and I'm a wellness advisor. And I'm new to Utah. I actually moved out here last April and created the Utah Wellness Network kind of for my own personal reasons. I wanted to connect myself to wellness providers in the Utah area, in the Salt Lake and Park City and Heber, Wasatch area, and also bring those resources to the public. And I love that the community out here is very health oriented. So we've got real foods and whole foods and grass-fed beef and lots of opportunities out here. But at the same time, unfortunately, a lot of people aren't aware of the effects of nutrition and I personally went through, 25 or 35 years of my life not really being aware of the effects of nutrition until I had a health crisis and had to look into that. And a lot of people are in that same position. So I asked Dr. Scott if he would come out and speak, and we can invite some folks to learn about what is actually in their food and how that can put them at risk for insulin resistance, prediabetes, and diabetes. And the rate of diabetes is off the charts. There's been a 146% increase in diagnosis over the last decade. And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of it in a lot of young people, people that are in their early 20s and 30s that shouldn't be dealing with any of these health problems. And now people are really starting to look at what is in our food, what's in our food sources, what's in those packages or those microwave meals and those cereals that say fortified and healthy and good for your heart. So we put together this wellness series, and Dr. Scott is speaking tonight at 7 p.m. And tonight we're going to focus on how to read labels, how to find the hidden toxins in your food, and what those toxins are putting you at risk for. Many of them have been associated with not just insulin resistance, which is now being termed Alzheimer's type 3 because of the overwhelming link of insulin resistance and prediabetes to early onset Alzheimer's and the progression of Alzheimer's, But also insulin resistance puts people at risk for heart disease, kidney disease, and many of the top 8 of the top killers here in the United States. So we're going to be looking at that, but also how these toxins are related to increased risk of certain types of cancers, especially for women, breast cancer, ovarian, uterine cancer, and skin issues, eczema, fatigue, mental fogginess, and how to read those labels and make just healthier choices. And this isn't going to overwhelm you folks. I promise that. Dr. Scott is all about simple changes that you can make right now that really jumpstart you on the road to better health. And it's a free workshop. Just come on down. We're going to be at Am Bank in the community room, which is on the lower level. Am Bank is right here in Heber. And I can't think of the address right off the top of my head. That's on 100 South, right?
Yeah, First South, I think 6th West is the cross street there.
Right. Right over by Snake Creek Grill and all those other cool little old time buildings. But we'll be there at 7 o'clock. It's going to be a great class. And especially for parents, this will be a huge asset to you and your children's health, and being able to make really healthy choices that help them have greater health as they get older as well.
Perfect. And if they have a number to call to register for that, do you have some?
Yes, absolutely. You can either go to the website, which is www.utahwellnessnetwork.com. That's just our meetup group, and it lists our events. And then you can also call 435-333-7055. Again, 435-333-7055. And just leave a message that you're RSVPing, and we will grab you a seat.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Shannon, for coming by. And anyone that's interested in that, which really everyone should be interested in that, I think we all know at least someone that's affected by these types of diseases. And the thing I love to think about as a mentor that used to say, we're doing all this genetic research and trying to figure out what's wrong with our genes, when really we've added so many of these chemicals and things to our food. And they say it's like dumping toxic waste in a lake, seeing all the fish die, and then trying to study their genes and figure out what's wrong with them. And so I think it's a really good idea. Come on by. We'll have a lot of fun for sure. So thank you so much. Let us now go to the fun things for the day. I couldn't find a good one joke of the day, so I found 2 bad ones. And I think the 2 bad ones will maybe cancel each other out and make one good one. I don't know. But here goes. They're both about getting bad news from the doctor. We don't like to get bad news from the doctor. But one is the doctor calls a guy and he answers and says hello, and the doctor says, Mr. Jones, I have bad news for you. Well, actually, I have bad news and I have worse news. And Mr. Jones says, well, what's the bad news? And he says, well, all your tests came back. You have 24 hours to live. And Mr. Jones is freaking out. What could be worse than that? I've got 24 hours to live. What can be worse? The doctor says, well, we've been trying to reach you since yesterday.
That's pretty bad.
Oh, God. I know. And this next is no better, but that's okay. So another guy goes in the doctor, got his test results, and the doctor says, well, I've got bad news and I've got bad news. And the guy says, well, what's going on? He says, well, you got a couple of diseases. First, you have cancer. The guy's very sad about that, right? And he's not really sure what to do. And he says, well, and you also have Alzheimer's. And the guy kind of breathes a sigh of relief and says, well, at least I don't have cancer. Anyway, good heavens. I promise, if you know a good joke out there, please let me know, because this is going to get bad here after a few weeks of finding these ones. Anyway, the interesting stat of the day, I was interested in this. I don't know when I even came up with my own curiosity about it. Do either of you know how old the oldest person ever was? This is what's it called? Guinness Book of World Records. How old the oldest person ever lived to. Authenticated, of course.
Was it 117?
117 is a good guess. It's not right. 134 is higher than. Though, like I say, this is like they had to actually look, and I don't know how you authenticate how old someone is. I don't think you cut them in half and count the rings, right? That's probably not it.
122.
122 is right. Joline
right.
Dalton wins. And she lived in France. Yeah, I know. Prize is just bragging
pat on the
rights.
back.
Yeah, there you go. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. So she lived 122 and some days. I can't figure out. Let's see. 122 years, 164 days. She just died in 1997, and it said that she met Vincent van Gogh.
Wow.
So that's kind of interesting.
Now, are there any reasons that they can think of why she was able to live that long?
You know, that is something that would have been good to look at. Let's see. You know, it doesn't really say anything that she was. I'll tell you that I just read an article about the oldest man that lives in the U.S. And they asked him kind of what his secrets were, and he talked a lot about diet and lifestyle and just kind of keeping things light and laughing a lot. I know that's what a lot of people say. But the oldest living person right now, because she passed, like I say, in 1997. But the oldest living person right now is 200, 116 years, and she lives in Japan, I think. 116 years, 175 days, and she is still going strong. So, congratulations to her. And I just think it's fascinating, right? I mean, to live that long, and I don't know. I mean, I don't want to live that long being connected to machines and not really knowing what my name is, but
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that I always think about when we talk about these lifestyle changes and living longer and better and things like that is I talk about playing basketball one-on-one with a great-grandson or something and beating him and then telling him when he's my age he might be as good as me type of thing. So I think that'd be fun. Anyway, so there's kind of our light and fun things to do today. I also forgot to mention, so those of you that are listening, just get your phones ready. Today we're going to try to take some calls, and it makes me a little nervous, not even to answer the calls, but all the technology involved. So luckily Sandy's here to hold my hand just in case I have trouble answering the lines. And if you're nervous about calling, just know you can ask anything, and we'll just have some fun. You can definitely ask about what the topic of the day is for sure. We're talking stress today. But if you just have general health questions, feel free to call in and ask, and we'll have a good time that way. So that's going to be the last 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes of the show. And I'll kind of announce that and announce the phone number. But just for your own records right now, our phone number is 657-1340. And when we open up those lines, hopefully someone's brave enough to be the first caller on this show. I think that would be fun. And if no one is, then I'll send Shannon to the back room and she'll call and say she's somebody else.
I brought myself.
Okay, good. Perfect.
I can do the man voice.
Fantastic. So like I say, we're going to talk about stress today. And stress is very important. In fact, it's interesting that we used to say, this used to be kind of a saying that we used to say that you worry yourself sick, right? You guys have probably heard that before. I remember hearing it a lot. My mom would say that, and she would say, you know, you worry yourself sick. And we don't really say that anymore, but I think every single person I've talked to realizes that in times of stress, their health is not the best. In fact, really, they probably will almost always say that, hey, when I'm most stressed, I'm most sick, right? Or I'm least healthy. And so what we're going to do this morning is talk about why exactly that is, because I think some people think it's all in our heads, but physiologically it really, really isn't. So we're going to have a good time talking about that, and then also especially what we can do to help decrease that stress in our lives. So that's why I brought my friend Joline. She's, like I say, a massage therapist, and I think the first thing people think of when they feel stressed and they feel like, oh, I need to relax, is they think, hey, I should probably go get a massage. Would you think that's true, Joline?
I do think that's true. That's probably one of the main reasons why we see people. They walk in and say, I'm so stressed out. I have 4 kids at home. I just need to relax.
Well, and I think this is a good show for Mother's Day coming up also, because moms are stressed. And so, So anyway, so I'm going to ask Joline kind of just tell us why you got into what you're doing and how long you've been doing it, and just self-promote for a little while. And
Okay. Well, like he said, my name is Joline, and I work over at Bounce Massage and Wellness Center. with a very talented group of just amazing women. But I grew up in New York, and of course, right out of high school, I did not know what I wanted to do with my life. So I took a job at a hospital in the orthopedic wing, and I developed x-rays when you actually went into the dark room and developed x-rays. And it was, after some time, it was really fascinating to me to watch this incredibly busy, just patients in the waiting room constantly looking at all these x-rays of people with rods in their back and just seeing all these surgeries, and these doctors were so busy. And it was a very high stress place to be working. It was just busy. And I started saying to myself, there must be another way for people to, they don't just have to go and have a surgery done, right? Maybe there's another way they can start to look at how to take care of their bodies before they get to this situation. And shortly after that, a friend of mine was saying, hey, I'm headed out to Utah to look at some real estate. Do you want to come with me? And I said, sure. And there's a massage school there I would love to look at. And very quickly I was enrolled in massage school and fell in love with it, fell in love with the anatomy and just learning about the body and about people and how much of a benefit that massage really is for people. So that was 12 years ago.
Wow.
And here I am today.
And so you're over at Balance.
Yes.
It's the little blue house on First South.
The little blue house on First South, that's right.
Very, very cool. So the statistics on stress, I want people to know that are quite new and very, very interesting. First of all, the AMA did a study a little while ago and came up with 80% of doctor visits being stress-related, meaning 8 out of 10 people that go to the doctor, or 8 out of 10 times that you go to the doctor, the cause of that visit is stress. And then the National Institutes of Health just came out very recently with this statistic, which I think this could be the statistic of the day. I guess I should have skipped the old people and talked about this, but 90%, and they said up to 90% of disease is stress related, has stress at its core. And when I heard that statistic, I thought, good heavens, I mean, that's 90% of disease is a huge number, right? That's not even close to, if it was 60%, it would be significant. Mm-hmm. If it was 50%, it'd be significant. It's 90% of disease, and I think that is something that is even hard to grasp. And so when we say, yeah, stress causes illness, well, yeah, stress doesn't just cause illness. Stress causes 90% of what we're dealing with today. And we're not just talking about the common cold, or I know I'm stressed, so I get a cold or something. I'm stressed, so I get diabetes. I'm stressed, so I get cancer. I'm stressed, so all of these diseases, 90%. And so this was part of me looking into how I want to practice and how I want to help my people in my own practice. I want to get to the cause of that stress, because if 90% of people are sick because of stress, let's see what we can do with that. And stress is something that we kind of bring on ourselves, right? I mean, the definition of stress is just any external stimulus that promotes a stress response in our body. And so when I say stress, or I say what is stress, I think people out there, I think of kids, right? I think of my 4 kids under the age of 7. That's like my stress. I think, okay, that's stress. And I think most people out there will have something in their mind that they think, oh, that specific thing is a stress to me, right? A job, a mortgage, something like that. Coming on the radio and trying to talk to me could be a stressful situation. And so what happens is it puts us in what we call stress response, stress mode. And the easiest way to think about what is the stress response is if you're sitting here nice doing nothing, and all of a sudden we look over and one of the new lions at the zoo has escaped and he's now in our house, right, or in the room. That's stress response. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about what your body goes through at that point, then that's what we feel. And I think it's very important to note that the stress response in our body is very, very efficient. It's very normal, and it's a really good way for us to deal with something like that, right? It's amazing. It gets us out of the room. It's, we call it fight or flight. Mm-hmm. And I tell people I call it flight or flight. I don't think I'm going to stick around. And so those are kind of the things that start to happen in our body. And so we talk about things like increased heart rate, right? Our heart starts pumping almost out of our chest. We talk about increased breathing rate. Really start to breathe hard and fast. One thing that's interesting is our blood glucose will increase. And we're not really, well, why would that happen? Well, basically what happens is our muscles take blood glucose from the bloodstream and make it food, right? And so when there's abundance of blood glucose, then the muscles can just pull it right out of the bloodstream and use it to run away. And so, and then the other two things that I talk about is digestion completely stops, right? Who cares about digesting food when we're trying to get out of the room that lion is in? If you haven't seen the lions, I haven't seen the lions yet. I'm going to go on a tangent down there, but I know that Shannon's been, and she was talking about her daughter being just like right up against the glass, and that the lion's kind of right there too, and that's kind of stressful, I can imagine. And so the other thing is our immune system completely shuts down also. There's no need to fight disease when we could be someone's lunch here in a second. And so keep those kind of symptoms, I don't even want to call them symptoms, those normal physiological changes in mind as we talk about why it is that stress makes us sick. Now, the other thing that we talk about is how do we know if we're stressed? Right? And most of us will say, yeah, I'm stressed. Like, I haven't really come across many people that say, oh, I don't know if I'm stressed or not. Most people say, yeah, I'm stressed. They know that they are. But how do I know? How does Joline now know? Really, the body stores stress in the form of muscle and tissue tension. And so that's why when we feel stressed out, we feel like we've got knots in our muscles. We feel like, I always talk about shoulder earrings, right? Our shoulders are getting so high to our ears that they're almost hanging off. And so that's why. And so anyway, I kind of want to ask Joline here also at this point, when people come in and they say they're stressed, can they point to where those muscles are tense? Do they know? I mean, is that something that people are aware of, would you say?
I think they're definitely aware of tight muscles in their body. And, typically someone will come in and say, I hold all my stress right here. And it's always in their neck, right? Or their shoulders or their low back. And I'm always amazed, though, how quick, though, people can say that and how they just kind of agree with it, that it's okay. That's just where they hold their stress, and they're here today to have it worked on.
Right.
So we want to encourage people to say, to take care of it before they come in with that, with those areas, and just be okay with it. So, yes, and it's not so much that we know where their stress is. It's more like there's a stress pattern in the body that's very recognizable.
And see, I hear that all the time too. Oh, this is where I hold my stress.
Yeah.
And I wonder if people really know exactly what that means, or if they just kind of feel like, but that's the thing, is when there's a stress that's so present and so always there that it causes the muscles to tense up like that, then you're right, there's something going on in their life, or something's going on in their body that's saying, hey, I can't turn this stress off, so I've got to just squeeze this muscle tense. And so if anyone out there is listening knows, they say, yeah, when I get stressed, I hold it in a specific place. Exactly, that's a pattern that your body has, and it's very wasteful to hold muscle tension, wouldn't you say?
It's very draining on people. For example, we see a lot of people who have headaches and migraines, and that's very stress related.
Right.
And I always try to say to people, before you get that, when you feel that headache coming on, just say to yourself, is this stress worth me feeling like that for the next 2 days, right? So just before it happens, really try to address it and eliminate it. I always think of the myofascial tissue like this beautiful spider web, right? Like this glistening, beautiful spider web. And then a fly gets stuck in it. And it starts like twist and turn and just start to tangle everything up. Just keep them away.
Yeah. I wonder what kind of bug repellent, right? That's what we'll talk about today. Our de-stress
repellent
stuff, we're going to have stress repellent so that fly doesn't get stuck. So the first thing I want people to realize about stress, so you go into your doctor's office, and the doctor says you need to decrease your stress, right? We've probably all heard that. And I want you to know that I think that's more of a stress to people than anything else, right? Because you think, okay, well, what do I do, right? Do I quit my job? Do I sell my kids? Not sell my kids. I wouldn't advocate the selling of children over the air. That's not what I mean. Anyway, but what do we do, right? How do we get stressed out? And it's almost too much to even think about. And we say, I just don't want to worry about it. because very, very misinformationally, or we're not really sure what happens, is the stress is not an outside thing. Stress really is, how does my body deal with it? And so we can all have the same type of stress, but we're all going to deal with it very differently.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite illustration of that is people in a doctor's office. There's 3 rooms, and you have this older couple. They're 45, 50 years old. Just had their youngest child move out. He's gone to college. They've got tickets purchased to go to Europe and vacation and have a lot of fun. Second exam room, you have a 14-year-old girl and her dad's hanging out there with her. And in the third exam room, you have this couple. It's a younger couple. They've been trying to get pregnant for 6 or 7 years and haven't been successful. And so the doctor gets to the office, and the nurse says, hey, we don't have any of our patient records for whatever reason. We know that one of these people, one of these rooms is pregnant. We're not sure who. And the doctor's solution is just go in and tell each one that they're pregnant, because then he covers all his bases, right? So if you can imagine, you have 3 very different stressful responses to the same stressor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want people to really recognize and realize that stress on the outside is one thing, but really the most powerful thing that we have is, how does our body deal with that stress? And if it deals with it effectively and efficiently, then we move along and we continue in our health. But if there's something that's making it not deal with it effectively and efficiently, that's when we have room for this storage of it, and this constant just constant stressing out of our body. So we're going to talk about what happens inside our body. So again, we talked about these short-term things that happen. When I say that the heart rate increases, it increases quite dramatically. We need to get blood pumped to all the areas of the body, especially into the extremities. And so if we have our blood pressure, if we have our heart rate increased for an extended period of time, right, and usually the diagnostic criteria is 2 to 3 months, then we call that hypertension, right? Someone that's been diagnosed with hypertension has a high blood pressure for an extended period of time. If our breathing rate increases, this is interesting. Anybody who out there who is hyperventilated, right, they know what this is about. When we start to breathe faster, we get less oxygen to our body. And when we get less oxygen to our body, then we don't get all the oxygen to all the cells that we need to, especially if we're talking about the brain. And so if we don't have enough oxygen in our brain, or if we have a lack of oxygen in the brain, then we can get a stroke, right? That's exactly what a stroke is when we don't have oxygen in our brain. The third thing that we talk about is the blood sugar increase, and Shannon was talking about diabetes, how much it's on a rise. I am blown away by how much our country spends on diabetes. It's quite amazing. In fact, if I tell you yearly we spend $18 billion, right, you'd say, okay, that's a high number, which it is. Most of us can't even grasp what that means. So I break it down hourly. And per hour for a whole year, it costs this country $200 million. I mean, that's an amazing number, right? I wish I made $200 million an hour. I wish I made 1% of that. That's a lot of money an hour. And so diabetes, right, an increase in our blood sugar. But if you understand that that a direct stress response in the body is to increase the blood sugar so that the muscles have food. Now again, if we're stressed and the muscles have food to intake, but we're sitting at our job, at our desk, we're not really moving, we're not really exercising, then that blood sugar has nowhere to go. The muscles aren't going to uptake it, so it's just going to stay in the bloodstream. And then we talk about digestion problems, right? When our digestion stops because of stress, we have all kinds of different issues. We can have food allergies. We can have irritable bowel syndrome. We have some of these things. And I would say a lot of people that come in my office have a really hard time with our digestion. And so if someone's listening and they think, yeah, I could probably be better, it could be a direct relation to this stress response. And then the suppressed immunity. I think that's something that we see all the time, right, with people just frequently getting sick. All these diseases kind of coming up and being spread, and we're not sure why. That we used to have control over some of them, right? I think of some of these measles outbreaks and polio and things like that. these are diseases that used to not give us all that much trouble. Now they're kind of coming out in pockets here and there, and people are blaming all kinds of different things. But if our immune system is consistently depressed because of the stress that we are taking on in our body, then we're not going to be able to fight these things off effectively. And even the things that we're trying to do proactively to keep ourselves immune, they're not going to be as effective because of our immune system being depressed. And so here are all these ties and these connections. And as soon as I started seeing these lines being able to be drawn and say, holy cow, if my body's in a stress response, I am at risk for all of these chronic illnesses that all these people have. And the statistics are quite staggering as far as how many people suffer with a lot of these issues. And I think that when the National Institutes of Health comes out and says 90% of that stress related, then instead of trying to, hey, what can we take, what can we do, maybe pharmacologically or chemically in general, why not instead let's look and see how our body is dealing with that stress. And most of us, like I say, when we say stress, what do we think of? We think of the emotional stuff, right? That's a big aspect of it. We think about things like I say, the kids. That's the thing that comes to my mind for sure. We think about work and we think about all this emotional stuff. And so if we don't have a lot of emotional stress, then we don't necessarily feel like we're stressed out. Would you say that? I know I've had people in my office that body-wise, man, they are tense as can be, but they talk about not really being very stressed.
Yeah.
I'm not stressed.
Absolutely.
But there's two other areas that I'm going to talk about in our stress response. And what we need to know is that the body doesn't care if it's emotional stress or from these other two areas. The stress response is the same. And so the two areas that we kind of ignore a little bit, or at least we don't tie into our stress response, the first one is our chemical response, our chemical stress. And this is one that Shannon was talking about for a little while because it's what we eat. It's what we take into our body. And the thing about it is when we don't really understand or at least tie in that and say, hey, when I eat something that my body doesn't recognize as food, we talked about that a little bit last week, how we show up to a building site and there's all these materials that we don't recognize, right? And the builder's very confused and doesn't really know what to do and knows he has to build something, but he's just going to have to try to build it, even though he doesn't understand what these materials are. It's a very stressful situation for the body. And then the other area is physical stress. And physical stress can be a lot of things. The easiest or craziest thing that I think of is a car accident, right? Someone gets in a car accident. You've seen them in slow motion, right? And how our body kind of moves in ways that it probably shouldn't. And you think, wow, that's a physical stress. But just as stressful as someone that sits at a desk for 8 hours a day and doesn't move. Just as stressful as someone that maybe had an old high school injury now that favors one side of their, one knee over another. And those are all very stressful physically. And so that's what I want people to realize is if you feel like that emotional stress side is taken care of, but there's still aspects in your life where you say, but I still, show some of these signs of some of these chronic illnesses, then let's look into these other areas of stress also. And it's funny as you start kind of diving into patient care and you start talking about, okay, well, where is your stress coming from? Very often it is emotional. I want you to know it's very often. But just as often somebody says, well, I'm too busy to do this, I'm too busy to do that, and so when it's lunchtime and I've only got 15 minutes, do I go home and make this beautiful salad with, grilled farm-raised chicken and things like that? They're going to the fast food, they're going right through the drive-thru, very easy. Something quick, something convenient. And so what they don't realize is that's compounding even the stress they're getting at work. And so that's why I think of this triad of this person that sits at a desk for 8 hours a day. Physically, they're stressed because their posture is bad. Chemically or emotionally, they're stressed because they're always, there's a lot of pressure at work and you're trying to do what you should do and make your boss happy and things like that. And then chemically, they're completely stressed. I've heard of some of these offices that have like a Coke dispenser, just completely free and clear for one of those fountains. That you don't have to pay. It's not even a vending machine. You just bring your own cup, and you just fill that thing anytime it gets empty, right? And this is happening.
Wow.
And we think, oh, well, this will increase productivity, right? Well, because they'll have, I don't know, maybe it's the caffeine that they think will help them. I don't know. And so we have this person that's just in this very, very stressed state. The body cannot relax. It cannot dial down. And so constantly it has all of these symptoms. And most of these people, over 50% of people over 55, have 1 to 2 diagnosed chronic conditions that they're taking medication for. And so most of these people are taking pills to try to settle some of this stuff down, when in actuality, it's normal physiology for the stress. And that's why I think where the body kind of doesn't see the connection, because they say, hey, I'm trying to help you, but you're trying to suppress me chemically. And so that's why a lot of people that take these drugs don't necessarily feel any better, right? Their blood levels are normal, and they say, oh, well, you're healthy because your blood levels are normal, but they don't feel any better. They don't feel any healthier. Mm-hmm. And so this is where we start to say, okay, well, what can I do to decrease that stress? And again, like Shannon said, I am super simplistic, right? I don't think everybody has 3 hours to go into deep meditation, every single day. Most of us can't find another minute in the day, basically, to do anything. And so what we're going to talk about is super, super simple ways that we can deal with the stress. And not only that, but I'm going to go through each of those areas, those 3 areas, because I feel like if every day we do something small in each of those 3 areas, the physical, the chemical, and the emotional, to combat the stress, then we'll realize huge health benefits from it. Not just from feeling better, but I think everything else, right? I think our heart rate will come down. I think our breathing rate will get better. I think that blood sugar can decrease, if we can just make sure the body's not in that really stressed state. So I'm going to keep my promise and tell you that it is I've got 9:44, but 9:45 or so. And so we are going to take some calls, and we'll open lines up now. The phone number again, 657-1340, 1340, 657-1340. If you have any question, I'd like you to call in, but for the next little while, we'll just talk about some of these simple ways. And if either of you two have ways that I'm not mentioning, feel free. And so this will be just kind of a fun thing to chat about. But if you'd like to call in, please feel free, and we'll see if we can't answer some questions. So first of all, let's get the emotional side out of the way, because like I say, that's the one that people really, really try to do better with. And the thing that I heard of that I really, really like as far as decreasing our emotional stress is getting into that attitude of gratitude, right? You guys have heard that. Mm-hmm. And I actually posted something on Facebook yesterday about, was it yesterday or the day before? I can't remember. Anyway, doesn't matter. About what do we do? What are our healthy choices during the day? And the first one I think that we're all faced with is, what do we say to ourselves when we see ourselves in the mirror? Mm-hmm. And it's not very fair, right? We're asleep for hopefully 8 hours, maybe 6 to 8. We've been laying in basically the same position. We've got pillow lines, and our hair doesn't look good. And we look in the mirror, and what's the first thing we say? Right? And I think that can be the very first time that we can combat some of that emotional stress. And instead of saying, oh, look at this and look at that can change, and look at this that I need to do better with, just be happy to be alive, and I don't know how hard that is. I'm kind of a strange optimist that I always like to look in the mirror, and my wife laughs because she thinks that I probably look in the mirror too long, but but I always, she thinks, she told me I wish everyone had your optimistic view, but I look in the mirror and I say, hey, that's a good-looking guy,
A good way to start is just with sticky notes with positive affirmations.
Sure.
Something huge that helped me when I was pregnant. You wake up every morning, and I'm sure there's a lot of moms out there who feel like this, and you say, what is happening to my body? But I put a sticky note on the mirror that just said, my changing body is beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
And guess what? If you see that every day, every morning, all of a sudden it starts to,
right,
click in.
Right.
At noon, at 1, at 4 in the afternoon, maybe you'll see that again, and it will just start to settle in. So that's a good way. Just things you want for yourselves,
right?
Just an affirmation about it.
Yeah, I think it's great. And to really, the other thing I really like is a gratitude journal. I've talked to people about doing this, that at the end of the day, get a sheet of paper and a pencil, and if you can get like a little notebook, or I guess paper and pen is kind of archaic, though, right? Grab your iPhone, grab your iPad, whatever it is.
Do a voice memo.
There you go, the voice memo. And 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for that day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's actually something I do, Dr. Scott. I do a gratitude journal. And yeah, I've been with my husband for 17 years, and we've got an amazing relationship, and I really attribute that to it, because at the end of the day, I think about the things I'm grateful for with my husband and my daughter rather than the things he didn't do, because there could be an equal list of that.
Maybe a longer list.
Yeah. And then we start each morning with a song. So we have a little good morning song, and that makes us all happy. And
I wonder if we should ask you to sing it, Shannon.
My gosh.
But I think that's the idea, is if we can get in that mindset, and really, let's be honest, there are so many things to be thankful for. You know, I mean, there really are. Many more things than we can gripe about. And you see some of these people that have hardships and have things that are harder than I have, I know for a fact. And see how happy they live, and how things seem to be good for them as well. And I think, well, I have so much going. Obviously, we all got things that we can get mad about and pick about and not be happy about. But I think really, if we want to get in that emotionally, if we wanted to get in that gratitude state, that, hey, I'm happy about things, then that's going to be a huge, huge help for us on the stress side. So that's, and again, she's writing down 3 things you're grateful for. How long is that going to take? 30 seconds if you're really having to think hard. And a little song in the morning, probably not a very long song.
It's a little tiny song.
So that's something really quick, really easy, I would say. If you can do something like that every day, look in the mirror, check out a sticky note that says how great you are. Let's go on to the physical side of things. This is definitely where Joline and I for sure have a lot of expertise. I think a lot of people feel like it's almost selfish to take care of themselves physically, which I definitely don't agree with. I think that, again, if we're stuck in these postures, if we have these events that happen, if we have these injuries, I can't tell you how many people come in and they say they've been hurting for a few years, and they just feel like they could deal with it. And I think, good heavens, I mean, how much more fun is it to not deal with it? I'm kind of a wimp, I don't know if I want to deal with things like that. And so instead of just seeing, okay, and I kind of equate it to a car, right? When we drive our car and something starts to go wrong, we get really nervous because we have to take it to the shop and we think it's going to be a bunch of money. And so we kind of start to ignore it. And I do this. Let me tell you, I do this for sure. Instead of just saying, hey, let's take care of it. The problem is, my car's going to last for what, 5, 10 years? 10 years if I'm really taking care of it, 5 years if I'm not. And then I get a new one, and cars work great. New cars are fantastic, right? With my body, that's not an option. And some of these new parts that you can get aren't always as good as the parts that you had to begin with, and sometimes they're going to have problems. And so I always say, if you feel like something's going on, it can usually be very simple. I think we get nervous that we're going to go into the doctor and he's going to tell us we have all these kinds of things, so we'd rather not deal with it. We'd just see if it gets better on its own. I think if we can proactively do something for ourselves in the physical realm to really help with some of these tension points, some of these postural issues, some of these pains and aches that we get, right? People that say, oh, well, I'm stiff in the morning for about an hour, but then I'm fine. I think, yeah, that's the check engine light coming on.
Mm-hmm.
We got to look into that. We got to see why that is, because typically stiff in the morning for an hour now in 10 years means stiff in the morning for 3 hours or 4. And so it's not something that just kind of will take care of itself. And so if there's anything you can do simplistically for your own physical self, right, I think exercise, I think movement there is the key.
I think movement is life.
Exactly. That's such a great, I love that phrase.
The day we stop moving, we're, how much fun is it?
Yeah,
it's not fun anymore. So movement,
yeah.
I agree, and I also think I'm gonna do a little promo of chiropractic here right here. And
that's why I brought you on, Shannon.
I'm not paid to do this, but one of the first things that I did when I came out here to Utah was to find a great chiropractor. and I go to Dr. Scott every week. And if you were to look at me, it doesn't look like I have any, physical problems. I'm not limping around or hobbling or anything like that. But I go because I like to take care of my body. And I know that when I do have any type of stored stress, it just releases it. And I'm also a huge proponent of massage. And I have a massage booked for Saturday.
There you go.
And I think for women, a lot of times, especially when we're moms, we know there's so many things going on in our life that we don't oftentimes take care of ourselves. And we'll do things like massage on a special occasion like Mother's Day. But going at least once a month, or at least, every 2 weeks or every week if you can. Something I tell my husband, when I ask him if he'll watch my daughter, is I just say, happy mommy, happy home.
It's so true.
That's the truth.
That's the reality. So, a couple hours out for me, me time makes happy mommy and happy home, and it's all good.
That's something I try to remind clients of. They're walking out the door. They say, oh, I'm just going to have to check my schedule and see when I might be able to get in again. And I say, take the time for yourself.
Right.
You make appointments for other things, for your hair, to take your kids to baseball practice and all that stuff. Just set the time aside for yourself. It contributes to your lifestyle, your healthy lifestyle that you're making a commitment to.
Right.
And that's it.
And I think, if people are nervous about exercise, if they're worried about what do I do to move my body, just find something you enjoy to do.
Exactly.
Also,
the right fit.
Yeah. And last night I went and played ultimate frisbee, and that was really fun. And I sweated. It was harder than I thought it was going to be. And and I had a great time. We played for an hour and a half, and that time just kind of flies by when you do something like that. And then definitely professionally wise, if you're looking for someone, whether it be a yoga class that you love, or a gym membership, or a massage, or chiropractic care, right? Obviously, I know what I propagate myself, but everybody kind of needs to find that, how can I take care of myself physically? And I think if we'll do something, like I say, daily, I think it's just movement. Get out and walk around. If you're the one that sits at the desk for 8 hours, every 30 minutes, take a lap around the cubicle. I don't know, do something, right? But there's more that we can do, not just on a daily basis, but on a monthly or weekly basis, where we can take some real time out for ourselves. And I think that can be very, not just physically helpful, but also emotionally, right?
Or instead of that office chair, get an exercise ball.
There you go. I've seen those. Those are kind of fun.
Bounce around on the exercise ball while you're at your desk.
Well, and I'm a huge proponent of, instead of trying to eliminate things from your life, just start to add positive, healthy things to your life. And then the bad stuff will just start to be filtered out.
Yeah, it's very easy to put good things in, right? Small little good things, and say, okay, here we go, I can do this. So as far as physical stress goes, those are kind of my easy things to do. And if you just never get out and never exercise, start with walking to the mailbox and back, each day. And just start doing something small. I told some people I like to do a couple of push-ups in the morning, just when I wake up, just to kind of get the blood flowing, things like that. If you could get out of your bed and do 5 push-ups every morning, you'd be healthier in a year, And they might be really hard tomorrow morning. If you haven't done push-ups in a while, 5 can be, maybe do 1, But as you make movement of your body a regular thing, all of a sudden things start to do easier, and you start to really notice that. Let's talk now just on the chemical side of things. We did some nutrition last week, and we talked about those top 5 ingredients that I like to avoid. And so there's not a whole lot of things I can say more about that, but I would say that chemical stress is probably the thing that has grown the most in the last 20 years. I would think that's the thing that has changed the most, that has made our bodies more stressed out than probably anything else. Not that other things haven't grown. I promise you they have too. I feel like in this day and age, we're the most stressed we've ever been in the history of the world, of mankind. And not only that, but our bodies are the least equipped to deal with that stress. And so we have this huge gap. And this is where we're seeing all these chronic illnesses. And again, we talked last week about how this generation that I'm raising, my kids, are supposed to dip in life expectancy. And it's such a terrible thing. And I think if we can change that simple thing by making it so our bodies respond to stress better, then we'll see that continue to increase instead of decrease. And so on the chemical side of things, I would just say whenever you can pass up a chemical stress, do it. And I'm with Joline. I don't think, I don't want everyone today, this morning, to say, okay, I'm done eating sugar. Right? I would love that. Sheesh, if you could do that, why not? But if you're not used to making changes like that, I would say instead, let's start pushing the good. And I had someone I really liked talked about fresh fiber first. He talked about FFF principle, and he said, if before you eat anything, you had some kind of fruit or vegetable, right, and it was fresh and it was good, and it was, garden season's coming. If it came from your garden, even better. And before let's say you're even about to sit down and eat a large pizza, that got your $5 one over there at Little Caesars. It's very cheap, and you can eat the whole thing if you want. You shouldn't, but you can. Before you eat that pizza, eat an apple, right? Eat a couple carrot sticks. Do something before you do all that. And so that's what I would say with chemical stress is let's start really pushing the good. People that check into cancer institutes, right? If you get cancer and you really want to fight it, you can check into some of these cancer institutes. One of the first things they do nutritionally is put you on 9 to 11 servings of fruits and vegetables each day. That's a lot. And I want you to know, government-wise, FDA-wise, my plate-wise, we're looking at about 4 to 5. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm pretty good at eating fruits and vegetables. I probably get around that, right? And then they get honest with themselves and write down what they eat. And we're lucky to get 4 to 5 a week, to be really honest, And so if we're not getting 4 to 5 a day, we're not even getting the bare minimum required of the intake. And what I say is, if 9 to 11 will help someone fight cancer who actively has it, why not 9 to 11? Why not start there?
Yeah.
And that's hard to do, to be honest, if you're not really constantly putting that kind of stuff in your mouth. But I promise you, if you can try to do that and not change anything else from your diet, eat whatever else you want, I don't care. But get 9 to 11 servings of fruits and vegetables, you will change your life, you'll change your health, and it'll be fast. You'll notice those differences so quickly. And the secret that I won't tell you is it'll be easier to kick out some of that stuff that you shouldn't be eating.
I have a good example of that. I've recently been seeing a client who she just did a 21-day, just a cleanse where her and her husband simply added 3 times a day, just a big green smoothie with super greens and protein powder and some really healthy, nutritious stuff. There are people who typically in the evening like to have a glass of wine or a beer. And she said the first week of this, they weren't really willing to give that up.
Sure.
And she said week 2 into it, they were saying, we feel so much better. Why? We don't even need that in the evening. So that's just an example of adding some good and kicking out.
It's a tricky thing. Yeah, it's a tricky thing for the body. And that's why I don't, you say, hey, just add this really good stuff. You can keep drinking your Diet Coke, keep drinking your whatever, eating your whatever. But you really start to feel the difference when you eat something good. And I'll tell you, sheesh, if you could do 3 green smoothies a day, you're getting that 9 to 11, I promise. Yeah. And so, anyway, we've got just a couple of more minutes. If there's that one person that just really wants to ask a question, you can call in, again, 657-1340. If not, we've had a fun conversation anyway. And, again, my goal for anyone listening right now is to start to make a list of something you can do every day in those 3 areas. And it can be 5 minutes for everything, right? 30 seconds to write down what you want, 2 minutes to go to the mailbox and back, and maybe some jumping jacks or I don't know, something like that. And think about things you're grateful for, and then just start eating more fruits and vegetables. And think of the things that you like. If you don't like a certain fruit or vegetable, don't buy it because you're not going to eat it, right? But if there's something that you love, buy a lot of it. And have it ready and have it available. And I had my 5-year-old in the nutrition class that I teach, and completely unscripted, and I was even nervous to do this. I asked him, I said, what's your favorite food? And my 5-year-old is not one that says no to treats, I promise you. And so I just crossed my fingers hoping that something, and he said oranges. That was his favorite food. And so I think, sheesh, if my 5-year-old's favorite food is an orange, I better have oranges ready for him to eat. Because if he wants something good, that's the first thing he'll eat. And then if I don't have oranges, then maybe, and actually I asked him, what's your second favorite? And he said suckers. So I better have oranges ready or he's going to eat suckers all day. Right? And I think most of us, when we're honest with each other, there's a fruit or a vegetable that we really enjoy to eat. We really enjoy eating it. And sometimes it's not convenient, and sometimes it's not there. Sometimes it's not in season, so it's harder. But start pinpointing those really good things that you like to eat, and stock your shelves, stock your fridge, wherever you keep them. Keep them there and keep them ready to go, so that when you do get a, hey, I want something really good or really fast or really convenient, it's there and it's ready for you, and you're not ready to say, okay, well, that fast food place down the street, and for $1 I can get a whatever. And I think if you can do something like that on the chemical side of things, you'll notice a big difference. And again, we talked, I said it last week, I'll say it again, every 2 years you're a completely different person. You've turned over every single cell. And so if you can add one healthy thing to your daily routine and keep it up for 2 years, you'll completely change your physiology, because every new cell that's made from here on out all of a sudden is under that healthier regimen. And then in 2 years, you've turned everything over, and they've all had the effect of whatever you just did, that small one thing. And so I think that would be my challenge to anybody out there today. That's probably about all the time we have. I want to thank both Joline and Shannon for coming by. And like I like to say, if you had a good time listening, hopefully you'll tune back in tomorrow. Tell your friends to listen also, and go out there. It's not the sunniest of days, but it's also not actively raining, which is nice for if you're going to be outside. But go out there and have a great day. Be well, and if you don't have any other reason to do it, then do it just for the health of it. And we will be back next week.